What is up, everybody? It's your boy Verdict, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today I have an unscripted, very special video for you guys, and we will be talking about Awakening Maegu. Now, if you know about the streams recently that I did, we covered there, we were very confused over what she did, why she did what she did, and nobody could really figure out why she was behaving the way she was. In general, this issue spring from the passive ability. The passive is worded extremely poorly. The passive is straight up misleading, and it's actually a lie because the passive doesn't do what it says that it does. On pretty much on pen and paper, the effect is there, and this is what the effect is, but it's actually not triggered the way this here says. So the thing with this passive is it has to be reworded entirely because it lets the player know that this is essentially a combo class similar to Succession, Mystic, Awakening, Mystic, Strikers, in general, the Gauntlets, with Kunoichi, and really, it's a straight up misleading description of what a passive actually is. So let me just take you through and let's read this carefully together because it doesn't make any sense simply by reading it. So the passive state the following: when you combo into the skills mentioned below while the revered fox spirit is Spiritforged into the foxfire of the foxtail fans, whatever this means, this phrase just makes no sense, you get critical hit damage 2.55 and 10% in the following situations when you hit the following skills. So the most important part here is hit, because you actually have to land a damaging hit on them, which is kind of not okay to begin with. Pretty much a couple of these abilities down below that we have, I'm not going to go over all of them. And when you use, this is stated separately for whatever reason, when you use Fox Flare Ambush. So the Fox Flare Ambush thing is that it's going to trigger it pretty much unconditionally, but that is also worded poorly because it doesn't, and we really have to kind of figure out ourselves when this actually does. And down below is where things make absolutely no sense. It states, critical hit damage effect will be removed in the following situations. Use a skill while not Spiritforged. So what does this even mean? Use a skill while not Spiritforged will remove the effect, but you cannot get the effect unless you use a skill that is Spiritforge. So this is like straight up making no sense immediately. And we have the switch to Fox Spirit Charm. Yeah, that's obvious, that does make sense, it works. And use the Chain Step or Chain Spirit Step, which in my opinion is absolutely unnecessary. And just to show you guys what I mean by this, if you just trigger this, just really quickly, this is the Fox Flare Step, whatever it is. If you use the A, D, and Shift button, you're going to immediately lose that. So I find it very, very bad whenever you punish a class's damage for its mobility. It makes no sense, considering the fact that Draconia's highest damage ability is actually a mobility spell. Having a class that loses damage on a mobility spell makes no sense. But anyways, that's probably just my opinion over here on this one. So, about the passive, let's go back to it. The passive doesn't work at all the way it states it works, and it's very misleading because you would think that you have to do 3 abilities and then unload with one of the bottom or whichever abilities that are quote-unquote getting extra damage or extra stuff while you have the passive up. So our abilities have the following effect is applied when Spiritforged, added 2 attacks extra, for an example, for the left and right RMB, and increase attack area. So that's pretty much nice. But however, nowhere it's stated into this passive that you actually have to chain the abilities one after the other, that is Spiritforged and non-Spiritforged, in order for you to achieve the effect permanently. And everybody at the start really thought that what you had to do is pretty much just do your best and maintain the passive for just one ability, like this one. And then you would have to redo the passive because it makes sense for it to be like this, but in truth, it's nothing like it. So let me tell you what this passive really is. And I'm going to also put a little bit of emphasis onto the Shift Q ability, which got guttered onto release. Apparently the 100% of the Shift Q is not considered a Fox Spirit thing, so if you start with your Shift Q on 100%, you're not going to get Spirit Forged, which is essentially makes no sense. Why wouldn't it do it? But it perfectly does it onto a normal state, but onto 100% you don't get that, so you can't start with it. You have to actually chain into it, and unfortunately, if you have your 100% while doing your combo and you don't Spirit Forge for the 100%, you're going to lose your stacks, which is like another really flaw of the design. of Awakening Maegu. So let's go into one of the combos. So if you start with the Shift Q and then you do an immediate F, you're going to notice that you get the 2.5%. From then on, you can't really wait the way I did. You just have to really kind of emphasize onto the speed of the class. So if you do, for an example, a Shift Q into an F, the next ability also has to be pretty much Spiritforge, because if I do an ability that's not Spiritforge, it's going to consume it. So you have to do it 1 2 1 2 1 2. So it's Spiritforge, non-Spiritforge, Spiritforge, non-Spiritforge. And just to prove that this is not always the case, let me just show you what I'm going to do. If I do a Shift Q into an F into an SRMB, it stays. And we don't know why it stays. We have no clue why it stays. Absolutely zero. It makes no sense. According to the passive, it shouldn't stay actually, but it stays. And that is because the F is actually considered a Spiritforge ability. So if you do your F and it triggers Spiritforge, then you should be able to use an ability that's not Spiritforge. So if you do a Shift Q and then do an F, it shouldn't be doing that. Now, just to prove a point, if I do one of my other abilities, so let's just do Shift E and Shift L and B. So Shift E Spiritforges me, Shift L and B Spiritforges me again. I don't get anything, but I get it over with the next ability. So it's really misleading. It's incredibly misleading, and the way this is stated that it works, it simply doesn't work like this. So onto the actual passive itself, the way it's visually represented. If you have played Succession Kunoichi, if you have played the Gauntlet classes in general, you know that we have gauges. Awakening Nova also has a gauge. You actually have to look for your ability passive thing and try to spot it so you know where exactly you are at with it. And I think this is something that Pearl Abyss can definitely work upon, because it takes a lot of effort to kind of spot the passive and figure out where you're at, especially with such a fast-paced class like Awakening Maegu. She's one of the fastest paced classes in the entire game actually nowadays. So let's really talk a bit about the initial misconception that we had with this. It really stems from the word combo, because as we mentioned earlier into the video, when you have a combo, you kind of think of 3-shard generation, you kind of think of the combo of Kunoichi with the 3-mark generation. This is kind of a staple for the combo in BDO. Not necessarily true if you play other classes, but still, if you come from the perspective of Mystic, if you come from the perspective of Nova, if you come from the perspective of Kunoichi and stuff, all of these classes, you're going to have a very, very wrong idea of how this is supposed to work. So I believe wording this passive, or rewording this passive so that it will help the player understand how this works, is crucial. And just to let you guys know, even PA don't know how this passive works. And I'm not even kidding with you, because the combo which Pearl Abyss gave us is this. And it actually doesn't even trigger anything of the Spiritforge up until the end of the combo. And if you repeat the combo that Pearl Abyss gave us, it actually does not work. So I know that Pearl Abyss are not famous for giving good combos. Let's cut them some slack. It's probably literally the guys being sent something, or they try to figure out something themselves. And I'm not mad at them, but I'm expecting something that would be actually good and function accordingly to the class's idea, the class's really perspective, if I could say so. The combo that they gave us is this. It's SRMB with RMB, Shift LMB with hold LMB. So it's SRMB, LMB, Shift LMB. Now we hold the Shift Q, now we do a Shift RMB, now we do the Shift F, and only at the Shift F do we get the actual crit damage. And afterwards, you do another F to kind of pump it up to 10%. And if you are to repeat the combo, you lose the entirety of the stacks. And we do not, and we know actually why, because apparently Foxflower Ambush with the Foxflare Stroke is unrepeatable. Now, granted, this is not, they haven't not mentioned that this is an infinite combo, but still, it really kind of speaks volumes into PA really not knowing how this passive works. The way they've tailored this passive is extremely confusing, and I think it should get fixed immediately. So, on to a next topic of conversation for Maegu. Let's jump into really one of the buggy things. We're not sure why this works the way it does, but if you actually space, this is a Sork move. Sork players do this all the time. If you space jump and you do the F key, or in our case with the LMB, you're going to get infinite Spiritforges. You're actually going to stack this through entirely, and it will never drop off of you. So here is where things get very confusing. When you do this, you can actually do an infinite combo rotation that will not even drop your stacks. And it's so weird to see this, because it's like, you know, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, it just, you can see it, it's not even dropping at this point. And not just that, fully capable of maintaining this pretty much forever. So it really boils down to inadequacies into the design. Obviously, this is very new, it's very fresh, but you know, hey, if we're going to paid beta test on live, you might as well just give the creators like me, all the partners, an NDA agreement or something like that, so we can be the first guys to catch this out, instead of everybody seeing these flaws onto the live servers and being upset the same way as I am. Now, in terms of the class's effectiveness, it's actually above, it's above viable. The class is actually working really good. And yeah, just give it a go. I'm pretty sure you'll like it if you try to avoid the poor wording of the passive. I think it's a very cool class. It's quite enjoyable. It's very fast-paced, this and that. I will be exploring it, as I said. So, thank you so much for stopping by, guys. Love you to death. Mwah. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.